how do you interpret the slope of this? Let's say that we're trying to figure out the effect that buying a new book has on our level of happiness. So we run this super highly sophisticated study and we come up with this equation here. Happiness equals 10 books plus 50. Now a quick note, in the original regression equation I had beta 0, which is our intercept coefficient first, and beta 1, which is the slope, what we're focusing on, second. I swapped this order because we want to focus on books and the slope for today. Now, for units, we are going to measure books in units of books. We have 1 book, we have 2 books, we have 0 books, whatever that unit might be. For happiness, we're just going to say units. We're just going to say I have 1 unit of happiness. I have 15 units of happiness. That is going to be our equation. Now that we have this equation, we have been asked to interpret the slope. But what does that even mean? How do you even begin? Well, what might help you is instead of looking at it and comparing it to this regression equation, we're going to go back to a basic equation we all should know. Y equals mx plus b. Do you see the pattern? This is exactly the same concept. Our happiness is our y, our books is our x, the m, which is our 10, is our slope, and then over here, this is b, that's our intercept. That's a discussion for another day. Since we are only going to be interested in our slope, I am going to pretend that this intercept does not exist. It does not have an effect on what our slope is going to be. Without our intercept coefficient, our equation has become happiness equals 10 books. And if we were to compare that to y equals 10x, we can now solve for y. So if we plug in x equals 1, we are going to find out that y equals 10. If we plug in x equals 2, we are going to find out that y equals 20. The difference between the two of these is going to be 10. With this in mind, we can see that our slope tells us how much y increases when x increases by 1 unit. If you were to continue the pattern and plug in 3, you would get 30. 30 is 10 more than 20. 4 is 40. 40 is 10 more than 30. And you continue the pattern all the way through. That same concept with x and y applies here. But this is a regression equation. So happiness isn't necessary, it is your y, but it isn't necessarily called your y. We call it the dependent variable. And books, well, yes, that is your x, it can also be called the independent variable or more commonly the regressor. So in a regression equation, our slope tells us how much our dependent variable increases when our regressor increases by 1. Therefore, our interpretation of the slope in this regression equation is for every additional book that we buy, our level of happiness increases by 10 units. That is it. There are no hidden tricks lying within this interpretation. When you are asked to interpret the slope of a regression equation, what you are looking for is how much your dependent variable changes when your regressor increases by 1 unit, aka your y and your x. Let's try that one more time, but this time our super sophisticated study is measuring the level of happiness dependent upon how many books we buy. And yes, I added the intercept back. Do not let that trick you. So take a minute, take a little look-see, see what you can do, and then I will tell you the answer. This is kind of an awkward pause, I guess. I'll just go ahead and tell you the answer. So the interpretation of this slope is, for every additional book we buy, our level of sadness decreases by 5 units. Now, this negative sign right here is very important. If it is a positive, you were talking about an increase in this case, we had happiness. If it is negative, we are doing a decrease in sadness. So the common denominator here is that we need to buy more books because it makes us happier and it decreases our sadness. And this is totally not an equation I completely made up off the top of my head. Nothing biased here. When you are asked to interpret the slope of a regression equation, what you are being asked is how much does y change when you change your x by 1? How much does your dependent variable change when you increase your regressor by 1 unit? Your y, your x. You increase your x by 1, and that is going to have the coefficient, the number attached to it, is going to tell you how much your y changes. So one more book, increasing x by 1, brings up our units of happiness by this variable right here, 10 units. If this was a negative sign like we had down here, it would be an increase. So we say change, we don't say increase, because we don't know if it's an increase or a decrease yet until we see the symbol. Your question might ask you, what is the increase in y when you change your x? Then you know you don't even need to worry about a negative. But the bare bones of it is how much does your dependent variable change when you increase your x by 1?